When should I clean or drain my spa, and what should I use to clean it with?
People ask me, what should I do? When should I clean my spa? When should I drain my spa? It's interesting, summertime happens to be one of the times of years where people will, whether they need to or not, that's when they like to change their spa water and do a drain and fill, because it's a nice day out. The weather's nice, it's not a big deal. Maybe they're not using their hot tub as much because it's the summer months. So when it comes to cleaning it, what things can I use to clean this? Okay, so the first thing that I talk to people about is before you actually drain the tub, there are a number of products that are designed as plumbing flushes. So they flush the lines of the tub. And that's important. And it's important that you turn the air controls on and leave the air controls on. A lot of people, maybe you don't understand what I'm talking about. When you turn your jets on, there's a dial on the edge where you can open and close that, and that will introduce air into it or not introduce air into it. So if that's closed, then water backs up in those lines and it just sits in there and it just stagnates. And so what happens is that somebody comes in 2 months later and they're having a tub and they're like, hey, these jets aren't very powerful, and they say, oh, turn on the air control. They turn on the air control and bloop out this stuff that's been fermenting in there, comes and introduces into your water and makes all your water messy, right? So keep the air controls on for the most part. In the winter, sometimes people turn those off because it introduces air into the system, and for the first little while in an Arctic, it's going to draw it from the cabinet, but after that, it's going to start drawing cold air in, cool your water off. So sometimes in the winter, people turn those off. There is a small effect on pH. Having air run through your water, there's a small effect on pH that happens, but not significant enough to worry about. You're far better to just leave it on. I think stagnating water is a much bigger problem, so it's better to not have your water stagnate. Now, our auxiliary pumps automatically introduce air. So we used to have a dial on all of the pumps, and what we found is that anybody that wants to use pump 2 or pump 3 or pump 4, they want the maximum jetting that they can get. So we automatically have the air on for those, and then when they shut the pump off, there's nothing. There's no water coming out the jets. The air doesn't flow. For cleaning out the lines, there's a number of products that are offered. There's a product we have in our Arctic line called Fresh Start. There's different products. There's Awesome. I think pretty much every chemical brand has their own version of a plumbing flush. Even the Whirlpool flushes that you could use for your home jetted bathtub. Just check to make sure that it's not something that could damage the plumbing, so check with your local dealer. But the idea behind that is before you drain this, we're going to put something in here that's going to scour those lines and keep those lines nice and clean. If you ever buy a used spa, this would be my number one thing to do. Fill it up and run that so you can get all the stuff that's been collecting from the previous users. You can get that all out of your spa. Also recommend new filters, right? You don't want to start with somebody else's old filters. And that you want to have those plumbing lines flushed. And you'll tell when you put this product in, like when we add Fresh Start to this, you couldn't add Fresh Start and then clean the spa water, clean itself up and start over. You have to drain the spa. In fact, we actually recommend that you fill it back up again and rinse all that stuff out of the lines, and now you're starting fresh. That's why the name, Fresh Start, and you start with nice clean water. Other things that you could do if you didn't want to use Fresh Start, you could actually add some of your liquid chlorine and do a chlorine shock and then leave it open in the sun. That'll kill the chlorine off, or add a little bit of peroxide if you want to clip before you introduce it back. You're going to drain your tub. It's going to go into on your lawn or something like that. We don't want to damage your lawn. So you could use high level of chlorine. That also will help clear your lines and stuff out as well. That's the old school way of doing it before they had these Fresh Start products, is we just increase the sanitizer level really high and the oxidizer level really high. Run your filtration cycle for 24 hours a day for a few days before you drain it, and that'll also get those lines nice and clear when you're draining and filling. Now, the acrylic itself, I tell people acrylic is kind of like a fancy paint job, but this acrylic is quite durable, but there are certain products you shouldn't use on it. First of all, you shouldn't use anything abrasive like Comet or some of those other old-fashioned Ajax scrubbers and stuff like that. You don't want to use that. You generally don't want to use the Mr. Clean sponges. Those are also an abrasive. Now, that said, you might have heard me in other videos say go ahead and use that. If you have a calcium buildup or something like that and you want to get that off, then that might be your only option. But you can wipe this down with cleaning vinegar, is one of the ones I recommend a lot. I tell people wear, dish gloves, right? Because the cleaning vinegar, it's still an acid and it can irritate your hands. Mild bleach solution you can use. Wipe the whole thing down, wipe the underside of your cover down with this product as well, and make sure that it's nice and clean that way. And then a lot of people like to polish this. We sell a product called Reflection that you can polish. There's other acrylic polishes that are out there. I should be able to remember some of the names, but I can't remember off the top of my head. Gel Gloss is one of them, ones that I used for many years. And it's just, you put it on, it's kind of like waxing your car. You put it on, you polish it off, and it makes it look nice and shiny. I like to have my spa look brand new when I go through the effort of doing that. So that's what I would use to clean that. For the cover as well, we have a product called Cover and Cabinet Renew, but you could use any vinyl conditioner with some UV inhibitor in it, because it's the UV that often causes the covers to get dry and brittle over time. Our Cover Cabinet Renew works very, very well at this, has lots of UV inhibitors, and I also put it on, we call cover and cabinet, because you can use it on the cabinet as well. And getting those UV inhibitors means you're not going to have to restain your cabinet anytime soon. It keeps it nice. It'll prevent the UV from causing it to fade, which is usually why people end up restaining in the first place. I think that's about it. The only other thing is sometimes people find that over time some of the valves and stuff and the jets become hard to turn on and off. This is a good time when you drain and fill your spa. You can take those jets out. They all unscrew, they can come out. You can actually soak those in your cleaning vinegar and water solution, and that will actually break down any calcium and stuff that's been built up on them. You can do that and then put them back in. You can soak your cell if you have an extra electrode cell, or you want to check to make sure that's clean. You can actually soak that in the cleaning solution as well and get some extra life. Every time my cell says that it's failed, I soak it and I leave it in the replacement box of the new one that I took out and put in. And I found that I get an extra month or two from that cell from time to time. So there's been a few times where I had to change my cell and I didn't have one handy. And I take that old one that I've invigorated with a little bit of extra life in it. And so yeah, those are the tips for when you drain and fill. What is the trigger to make me want to drain this? The biggest thing that I tell people is when you get to the point where it seems that you have to make a lot more adjustments with your water, or you're having trouble balancing things, it's usually because the water's getting old. We have people that we have some people they're on their 4th and 5th year of the same water. And what happens is if you're on a traditional maintenance system, you'll never get to that. Because what happens is you get a buildup of chemicals in there, and usually every 3 to 6 months you have to drain it, because the buildup of cyanic acid, the buildup of reacted chemicals in the water, and the overall TDS, which is total dissolved solids, the overall TDS of the water is raised to the point where you need to drain this. And so TDS is probably the #1 indicator as to when you should drain. But I want you to also just think about, am I doing more? Am I finding it harder? Is it trickier? Or you start to see, maybe I got foam all the time. I'm getting foam. It's nasty looking foam and stuff like that. It's because stuff keeps coming out of solution. And one of the things I tell people to think about is the water is kind of like a bag. It can only hold so much stuff. And when you start putting more stuff in, other stuff has to come out. So if I had a garbage bag and I was filling it full of things, and I kept trying to if I want to put more stuff in, I got to take stuff out. Well, the same thing happens with your water, and when it gets to that point, that's when you want to drain and fill. One other tip that I like to give people is, what if it isn't the summer? What if it isn't the summer and I have this ideal day when I can drain this thing out? What if it's the middle of winter and I realize, oh man, my tub water needs to be drained? Well, you can actually drain part of it. You don't have to drain the whole thing, particularly if you don't want to go through the whole process of flushing it, cleaning the acrylic and stuff like that. Sometimes if it was the middle of winter and you had to get your water working well again, you could drain half of it or a third of it, introduce some fresh water, and that's like emptying the bag a little bit, and that'll give you another, it could be 3 months, 4 months, could give you another year if you're on a saline-based system. I'm John Keirstead for Arctic Spas. Thanks for watching the video.